Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Packers Unscripted from Packers.com. I am Mike Spofford, joined, as always, by my trusted colleague, Wes Hodkowitz. We're coming to you here from our studios at Lambeau Field to continue, Wes, our discussion of Packers training camp. Now, since our last show, there's actually only been one additional practice because the players did not have practice on Wednesday. So, all told, 6 practices in the books. 2 of them have been in pads. And I think you would agree with me here that today's discussion probably best start with a young wide receiver named Matthew Golden, because holy cow, on the practice field on Tuesday, the second padded practice of training camp, he was the star of the show.
He was, man. And it just seems like this entire week, this first 6 practices that we watched at this time, number 22 is just keep finding a way to find the football and making big plays. And I've talked a lot about just what he's able to do underneath, his quickness, his footwork, his ability to get in and out of his breaks. But we saw on Tuesday what this guy can do with his speed as well. A very deep crosser. He's going up against Nate Hobbs. He's up against Evan Williams, 2 of the top guys in this secondary, and the amount of separation he was able to generate and how Jordan Love was able to put the pass on him, 60-yard touchdown bomb. This is an absolute game changer. And again, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. He's going to take some lumps. But when you're talking about a first-round pick, when you're talking about that receiver that the Packers have invested into their future, the promising signs are there with Matthew Golden.
And the growth that he is showing already in a very short period of time is very promising as well. After Tuesday's practice, I talked to him very briefly one-on-one at his locker before the rest of the media horde came, but I did have him one-on-one just for a little bit, and I asked him about that 60-yard touchdown pass, and he immediately said, I had that same route the other day in practice. And he said, today, he said, I ran a little differently. It's sort of a, I don't want to call it an out and up kind of thing. I guess you'd call it a double move.
Yep.
Sort of like a an in cut and then you go deep type of thing. And he said that essentially when he ran it again on Tuesday compared to the previous day, he locked eyes with the cornerback and sold the shorter route better with his eyes before he took the route deep. Yep. And you know how it is in this league. The margins are so slim. All these guys are incredibly fast, incredibly athletic. But if you just do one little extra thing that gives you an edge, that's what then gets him open on the deep ball, and Jordan Love is able to put it on him for the long touchdown. It's just an illustration of adjustments he's already making, the growth that he's already showing. He told me that things are slowing down for him a little bit. But the impression that I got in chatting with him is that this is 2 things. This is a young man who is very, very confident in what he can do, but he's also very aware that he doesn't have this all nearly figured out yet. He's got the right perspective on it as he goes about it, and there's a lot of excitement about what lies ahead for him.
Humility mixed with natural talent and how far that could take this guy. And again, it's sort of the hallmark of a lot of the guys the Packers have drafted over the years. There's a certain amount of character that comes into it. Obviously, if you know anything about his history and where he comes from, what he's been, the way he was brought up, this is a man that is going to get everything out of his talent, everything out of his athleticism. Very interested to see where he could take this thing from here. But I laugh at it because it's like we're sitting here, and it seems like every day when we're doing 5 things, there's a Matthew Golden note that you could write.
Yeah.
Just based on something he's doing in practice or some kind of potential impact he's making. And the fact that the Packers are incorporating him as quickly as they have been in some of their first team starting packages, again, I think speaks to his level of commitment to this thing and also the upside that's there. I mean, Matt LaFleur's talked about it time and time again. You don't want to set expectations too high for young receivers, but the way the college game has gone, more and more of these guys now are coming in and making quick transitions. And again, when the signs of promise with Matthew Golden, everything you're looking for.
Yeah, and one thing that you said that also has stood out, especially I'd say the last couple of practices, you've talked about his ability both underneath in the short area stuff and then also on the outside and down the field. And we've seen that that mixture in terms of the types of plays that he can make. He had one, I can't remember now for sure if it was on Sunday or Monday, where he's running essentially like a deep out toward the sideline, and Keyshawn Nixon's all over him.
Yeah.
Really, really good coverage. Jordan Love decides to, throw the sideline ball. Obviously, there's some protection from the interception there with the sideline, and Golden and Nixon kind of both go to the ground over by the boundary, and Golden ends up kind of rolling over on top of Nixon and comes up with the football. Yep. And it's like, now I don't know on replay if you'd slow it down and look at it, does he actually get both of his feet in bounds, or does he end up kind of rolling over Nixon and going out of bounds? It might have been incomplete, but just an incredible catch. When the ball left Jordan Love's hand, I think all of us on the sideline saw the coverage and saw where the ball was headed, and it's like, oh, that's going to be incomplete. Yep. He comes down with the football, whether it was officially a completed pass or not. So those are the types of things that we're seeing. He made a great adjustment, some really good one-on-one reps, which I wrote about. There's a story on Packers.com. He had a series of 3 one-on-one reps with Carrington Valentine, and those two guys were really going at it. Two of the guys I think who have been the standouts of camp on each side of the ball so far. And on a deep ball from Jordan Love, he made a great adjustment. Valentine had really good coverage, and Golden adjusts, gets his body back to the inside and reaches out and makes the catch on a ball that Jordan Love was actually afraid Valentine might be able to intercept. So those are the types of things that we're seeing from Golden, and the fact that it's just 6 practices in has been really impressive.
Yeah, and again, I see so much of like when you look at what Jaden Reed did early on, and obviously Romeo Doubs, the way he practiced right away, it's just the preparation with it. It's just impressive to watch, and you can just tell that the guys put the time in to understand what his role is going to be in this offense and trying to fill that as quickly as possible. And honestly, that brings the floor up. It heightens the ceiling for that entire room.
Yeah.
I thought, Romeo Doubs has had some really good practices the past few days. Obviously, Jaden Reed had a big day on Tuesday in the 2-minute period. McCole Hardman has made himself known here. Obviously, Dontavian Wicks currently working his way through a calf injury, but the list goes on and on and on. And when you have a young guy like Golden come in, I mean, that's what pushes that tempo up.
Yeah, and Adam Stenavitz actually said yesterday when he spoke with the media, he mentioned that Golden is kind of reminding him a lot of the young guys who have come through in the last couple of years, guys like Dobbs and Christian Watson and Jaden Reed, and just how they've looked and how they've prepared themselves for practice early on to be able to get out there and make some plays right away. A couple of injuries to update folks on. We will see where things are for Thursday's practice, which will be after we are recording this show. But Marshawn Lloyd injured his groin. Yeah, sorry. I lost it for a second there. Marshawn Lloyd with a groin injury. And just to clarify, there's been a lot out there with regard to contact from Nate Hobbs on a running play where Lloyd got hurt. It's actually been determined that the contact from Hobbs didn't have anything to do with the injury. Unfortunate either way for Marshawn Lloyd, who's just dealt with an incredible amount of rotten luck. But hopefully this is not something that keeps him out too awfully long. And then Dontavian Wicks in that receiver room, he's dealing with a calf injury. So we'll see when Wicks can get back on the field. A couple of other things to touch on, stories that you and I respectively have posted on Packers.com. We'll start with yours. We got a little bit more detail from defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley as to just what all of this forced fumble emphasis is all about, and you wrote a really good story. People can catch that on Packers.com as well. But tell us what we learned there.
Yeah, so it was fun. This all kind of started last week in one of the but the Packers locker room availabilities, where Evan Williams was talking about sort of this aggressiveness that we've seen in practice. And Matt LaFleur has also talked about this, saying that this is the hardest he's ever seen his defense attack the ball in this setting during his 6+ seasons as the Packers head coach. And it's not a coincidence. This was, as Jeff Hafley confirmed, the number one emphasis, other than play style, but in terms of like trying to improve over last year, forcing more fumbles, being more deliberate about punching the ball out, especially when you're taking guys to the ground. And guys have been whacking at the ball, as we've been talking about. Some haymakers being thrown at the ball, like Jeff Hafley said. And the guy that he kind of deputized a little bit to handle this is Wendell Davis, who's been a quality control coach here for several years for the Green Bay Packers. And they've now dubbed him the Ball King. And that is his role at the beginning of these team meetings in the defensive side of the ball, is instructing guys on here's what happened in practice, charting and tallying various different metrics that they keep, and presenting them to these various groups that are involved in this thing, challenging them to be better. Evan Williams said, the number that they're chasing right now is 43, which to what I surmised was actually the NFL record for turnover margin in the National Football League. Washington did it in 1983. Mark Murphy had 9 interceptions on that team that year, was a first-team All-Pro. And it's basically considered an unbreakable record. I think the next closest isn't even in the 30s for plus turnover margin. So, but as Hafley said, whatever the case may be, whether they're trying to lead the league, whether they're trying to break records, it is that diligence to be able to chase something better. They had a lot of interceptions last year, but he said, we did not force the fumble enough. We need to do that more, because you're not always going to be able to get picks. Sometimes you're going to have to force them in other ways. You're going to have to catch guys off guard. Packers were pretty good at it last year. They were tied for 8th in forced fumbles, and I believe it was 3rd in fumble recoveries, but they want to be able to take it a little bit further. That's where that emphasis comes from. That's why Wendell Davis has been putting together these productions. They mentioned they've even installed a button in the team meeting room now, so that when you hit it, the play is made, a takeover is had in practice, a siren goes off. I'm sure everybody enjoys that.
It's like the bat siren or something, like in the bat cave.
Yeah, everybody knows. And no, but I mean, this is again, nobody's resting on their laurels here. It was the best Packers defensive performance in so many categories since the Super Bowl season in 2010.
Yeah. But
it's what can we do to get that much further as a team this season, and the defense has taken that to heart.
That must be fun for Wendell Davis to go through the practice film and to find from his point of view, he's finding all the instances where the guys went after the ball. He wants to show, okay, this is the aggression that they want, etc. But then you're also finding the opportunities where somebody could have gone after the ball and they didn't, and showing those and saying, hey, this was a missed opportunity here, et cetera. Again, as I said in our last show, there is the caveat to this that the defense is not tackling, or at least the first string defense. We did see live tackling in practice on Tuesday with some of the reserve units. First string units are not doing tackling, and as Tucker Kraft pointed out, the offensive guys are not allowed to stiff arm when they're in the open field in order to protect the football, and to keep defenders away. So there are some caveats here to this, but also, as I said, training camp is about emphasizing certain things. You're trying to get things top of mind, get things trained in the brain for when the players then put it all together, and all of the things that they need to do when the games are real and things are live. Man, plus 43. That's
plus 43.
Yeah, I know I've looked up a few times and the number always escapes me. Like the 85 Bears had like a ridiculous turnover margin, but I want to say it was, like plus 39 or something like that. Like it was in the upper 30s.
And if you think back to that time, being able to take away the football that way, but then also protect it.
Yeah, protect it at the same time on the other side.
Forgotten a lot about with some of those defenses of the Packers, because I was looking up some of the Packers records. I don't have them all in front of me right now, but the record for most turnovers forced, I believe, is actually the 1981 defense. But unfortunately, they gave up a bunch of yards, and then also they're unfortunate with some offensive turnovers too. So that kind of affected that margin. But there are some. I think it's the Seattle Seahawks of, was it 1984, have the record for most turnovers generated in a season.
Is that what it is?
And I believe
the 84 Seahawks.
Yeah, I think it's like, I'm gonna get this wrong, but I want to say it's like, is it 69, something like that?
Oh my gosh.
In the modern era, in the post 1970s, because I think there's actually like a lot of very bizarre stats.
Oh yeah, there's some
some
crazy numbers from the early days.
Nobody's
of football.
protecting the football.
Yeah, nobody cared apparently.
But I like what Jeff Hafley's message was, and he did kind of say tongue in cheek. He's like, I'd like to be able to keep in some of these secrets here that they're working on. But he did say, whether you lead the league or not, you cannot lead the NFL in these categories. You cannot have these type of production and this type of success without practicing it, without preparing it. He felt like they didn't coach it well enough last season. They wanted to change that. And obviously, you're seeing that right now.
Yeah, well, a couple other topics to get to, but we need to pay some bills first, Wes.
Yes.
So let's hear from our sponsors. SiriusXM NFL Radio delivers hard-hitting analysis and up-to-the-minute NFL news that true football fanatics need 24/7, 365. At Cousin Subs, we have something for everyone, like our Wisconsin cheese curds, mac and cheese, golden fries, and creamy shakes, all paired with your favorite sub or sub in a bowl. Cousin Subs, 50-plus years of better. Pit Boss Grills, the official grill of Packers tailgating at Lambeau or at your house. Take your game day to the next level with a Pit Boss wood pellet grill. Pit Boss Grills available at Menards. Welcome back to Packers Unscripted. Still talking training camp. 6 practices in the books, 2 of them in pads. Another one coming up shortly after Wes and I turn off the cameras here. We heard from the coordinators yesterday. We talked about what Jeff Hafley discussed. One of the key topics that came out of Adam Stenovich's session with the media, which I wrote about, story on Packers.com on this one as well if you want to check it out, is kind of an early look at where things are headed with these competitions on the offensive line. And as we talked about all through the offseason, Jordan Morgan is going to be given a chance to compete with Rasheed Walker at left tackle and with Sean Ryan at right guard for a starting job. We don't know exactly where this is going to go or how it's going to shake out. But the early look is that the coaches are liking what they see from Jordan Morgan. And that's not to say that he's going to be a starter on this offensive line. What I took that to mean is that these competitions are potentially going to create some very difficult decisions down the road here for the Packers coaches in terms of which way they're going to go. Now, Jordan Morgan hasn't taken a whole lot of snaps at left tackle yet because of the injuries, the back injuries to both Aaron Banks at left guard and Elton Jenkins at center. Morgan has been taking a lot of snaps at left guard in Banks' stead. He's also taken some at right guard, when Sean Ryan has been at center in place of Jenkins. But Jenkins has been working his way back. We'll see now if Banks starts to work his way back into more of a full-time workload. And when it gets to that point, it sounds like Morgan is going to be given some number one reps at left tackle. The bottom line is the sense that I get anyway is that these competitions on the offensive line are not necessarily going to be decided anytime soon.
Yeah.
This could go on for a while.
Yeah, and they want to keep guys going because, I mean, when you have this type of versatility and this amount of depth, they're going to need all of it at some point. Jordan Morgan, whether he's a week 1 starter or not, is going to have a role on this team this season. He's playing too many different positions, and we know how dangerous and daring a season can be in the National Football League, trying to get 5 offensive linemen from point A to point B without injury, without incidents. So one of the things I really respect about the Matt LaFleur era from when he came in the door, and this is a credit to Adam Stenovich too, they have not been afraid to rotate offensive linemen.
Yeah.
That is how Elton Jenkins got his first opportunity in the league. And then what unfortunately ended up happening that season was Lane Taylor suffers a season-ending injury. In 2 weeks into that, rotating in Elton Jenkins, he's suddenly now your starting left guard.
Yep.
And ends up having a PFWA all-rookie type season. The next year he goes to the Pro Bowl. Sean Ryan, who was the every-game starter last year at right guard. Well, how did he finally get his opportunities? In the same year in which John Runyon was in a contract year, they started rotating in Sean Ryan every other series or every 2 series to 1 to give him some opportunities, to get him going once again, to be able to integrate him. And by the way, did not hurt John Ryan at all. He's still John Runyon at all. Got a big contract from the New York Giants that offseason.
Yeah, he got a big payday.
But you have to be able to keep guys going, and you have to give them those opportunities. They are so deep right now on this offensive line. We haven't even talked about Anthony Belton in this camp.
Right.
A second-round pick. There's a lot of teams in the National Football League that would draft a left tackle in the second round, and there would be no discussion. You're in the starting lineup. We need you to contribute from day one. And while Belton has endless amounts of potential, Stenavich said, this young man still has a ways to go here. We have to get him up to speed with what we want to do offensively. When you talk about why the Green Bay Packers offensive line has been successful, as your story articulated, it comes back to these principles. Not throwing guys in bad positions, and when they do get out there, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, and there's a long way to go here, and we don't know if things are ultimately going to result in any rotation starting in week one. But Stenavich did not rule that out as a possibility. That may be where things go. And we've seen these rotations take a couple of different forms. You mentioned the one 2 seasons ago with Sean Ryan and John Runyon at right guard, which was started somewhere around mid-season toward the second half of the season, and it carried all the way through the playoffs. Yeah. At the same time, there was also a rotation going on that season at left tackle between Rasheed Walker and Yosh Nijman. But in that case, Rasheed Walker essentially won the job through those rotations and that competition, and then he became the full-time guy, and Yosh Nijman was then on the bench. So these rotations can go different ways, and essentially, if the rotations carry and any rotation carries into the regular season, you have to look at it as the competition is still going on. Somebody might win the competition, yes, and then the decision is made. The good thing for the Packers in this, even though there is some uncertainty now, and there may be some uncertainty at the end of training camp here, but the good thing for the Packers, and the way I articulated it in the story, is that if somebody is the odd man out at either left tackle or right guard, and that player becomes the kind of the quote-unquote sixth man on the offensive line, your sixth man is either a first-round pick from last year in Jordan Morgan, an 18-game starter at right guard in Sean Ryan, or a 35-game starter at left tackle in Rasheed Walker. If those are your options for a sixth man on the offensive line, obviously knock on wood that everybody stays healthy, that's not a bad spot to be in. And then your seventh guy is maybe a second-round pick in Anthony Belton or a fifth-round pick from a year ago in Jacob Monk. So the Packers are trying to line things up here where guy number 6, guy number 7, maybe even guy number 8, that they're going to feel really, really good about their depth, because you might have 10 or 11 on the active roster, but you're only going to probably have 8 of them active on game day. But they want to have they want to feel really good about everybody they have up through that 8. And that's the spot they're trying to get to, and it wouldn't be a bad spot to be in, obviously.
It's not, because another thing you mentioned there, what happened when Elgton Jenkins was out with the back injury? It was Sean Ryan was the one rotating him as the number ones as the center.
As the center, yep.
He was playing all those interior spots. This is a guy that was a 3-year starting left tackle at UCLA. It's just the way of it. It's how these things have to go, and it makes guys smarter too. Sean even talked about it this week. Him playing center has taught him so much about the calls, and when he's at guard, what Elgton Jenkins is looking for in those situations. And yeah, I think iron sharpens iron, and the fact that Jordan Morgan has been able to come back from that shoulder, get back to the type of prospect that everybody thought he could be, it bodes well for this offensive line and where this thing could head in 2025.
And if Jordan Morgan hadn't gotten hurt, we may have seen that rotation at right guard last a lot longer last season, because that was another rotation that they went with. Ryan and Morgan were rotating at right guard, but then the shoulder was a problem for Morgan. He needed to have surgery, ended his season. They shut him down. But now here we are in 2025. Last thing before we go, Family Night's coming up on Saturday night at Lambeau Field, and I'll just throw this out to you. Anything in particular you're looking for, hoping to see on Saturday night under the lights at Lambeau?
Always interesting, as Matt LaFleur talked about, to see how guys respond to these moments. Every year, it seemed like during the Aaron Rodgers era, there was always a young cornerback that stepped up, made a play, kind of made a name for themselves. There's a bunch of different players that I think you've seen sort of take what we've seen in practice and now translate it into a crowd of 70, 80,000 people. Watching those guys rise to those moments, seeing the energy of that stadium fill up for the first time now in what's been 8 months is always exciting. And the other part of it, too, that I think can be a lot of fun is watching some of the little memories that get made. I will forever remember that kiddo that was catching punts last year.
Oh, that was incredible.
One after another. He has Rich Bisaccia behind him. Rich is coaching him up like it's the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Trying to see if the young man can catch as many of those footballs as possible. Keyshawn Nixon, everybody's getting involved. That's what that night is all about. It's very special. It's very unique. And in addition to helping prep the players for that first preseason game, which at that point will be a week away against the Jets, it also is that reintroduction of football again. And I've said it time and time again, Mike, I could do this job for another 40 years. There is no better feeling, there's no better energy when you're walking into Lambeau Field on a game day. You hear kids laughing, you smell the brats in the air. There's maybe a little bit of sunshine involved with it.
It really does feel like the kickoff of the season when family night arrives. It is a different vibe in the stadium with the families and the kids, and it's really neat in that respect. But it does feel like the launching pad to everything that's going to be coming up in September and October and all the way down the line. I'm with you in terms of the action on the field. It always seems like, as long as the weather cooperates and we don't get storms and all that business, and as of now, it looks like the weather forecast is pretty decent for Saturday night. It always seems like there will be some young player, maybe it's a receiver, maybe it's a running back, maybe it's a defensive back or a linebacker, somebody who's been essentially running with the threes, with the third string units, who will step up and make a big play or two on family night, and then that sort of elevates them up with the twos moving into the rest of training camp and into the first preseason game and stuff. And then suddenly that guy who spent the first week and a half, 2 weeks of training camp with the threes is suddenly a guy to watch maybe as one of those dark horses, long shots to make the roster, and just maybe a spot on the 53 is waiting for him if he can continue to build on what he does on family night in front of the big crowds and in the big spotlight. And I guess we'll just have to see if somebody like that emerges this weekend.
And in so many ways, Mike, this is confirmation of what a lot of guys will have done through the first 8 practices. When you see that consistency getting built, when you see guys stitching together one solid practice after another, when you translate it into Lambeau Field, I think that's when you start to realize, okay, guys like this, there's something there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we will talk about family night on our next show early next week, but for now we'll call it a wrap on this edition of Packers Unscripted. Be sure to follow all of our continuing coverage of training camp on Packers.com. For Wes, I am Mike. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next time.